This video is going to walk you through the annotated bibliography assignment, whether you choose a traditional annotated bibliography or whether you choose a graphic bibliography. If you have looked through the assignment sheet already and have decided that you want to choose the graphic bibliography, you can go ahead and check out the timestamps associated with this video and jump to the part that is relevant to you. So I'll begin talking about a traditional annotated bib, and then the second half of this video, if you choose approach 2, is when I'll talk about the graphic bibliography. Alright, so the point of an annotated bibliography is to essentially think about sources that you will probably use for a paper. We are not associating our annotated bibliography with either of our papers unless you choose to. The goal here for our purposes in class is to practice reading scholarship, because literary studies aren't just reading a text and talking about it. There's scholarship that's associated with literary studies, so we need to be able to read that scholarship. And that's the point of our annotated bibliography or our graphic bibliography for our purposes this semester. Okay, so 2 essential goals: to practice researching in literature and to practice reading and understanding critical essays. These are really important things if you are going to go into literature. They also help you practice a skill of critical analysis, critical thinking, and reading complex texts. Again, there are 2 approaches to this assignment. You are not doing both. You're picking one or the other. The first is a traditional text-based annotated bibliography, and it would suit a student who just kind of likes to read and offer summaries and maybe isn't really all that into more creative projects and wants to just go a traditional route. The other option is creative. It's image and text-based, and it would best suit a student who enjoys using graphic design to represent text-based content. Both of them are involved in their own ways. The traditional route requires more reading of more texts. The graphic bibliography route, the creative route, requires, I guess, just a different use of your time as you are reading and processing one scholarly article. Either way, an annotated bibliography is a collection of research with annotations to remind yourself of the main ideas of the research you've read. For this annotated bibliography assignment, please select one of the approaches below. They both are very different and they both have their own grading rubrics, so keep that in mind as you decide what you want to go with. Alright, first I'm going to talk about the traditional annotated bibliography. If you go this route, you will select 3 scholarly articles and you will write an annotated bibliography summarizing only each article. You should write your summaries in your own words. If you pick this approach, I would like you to select a text that we have read or will read this semester. So it's got to be something on our course calendar, so take a look at that before you make your final decision. Make sure that it's on there, but anything on the course calendar from week 1 all the way to the end is fair game. Then I want you to find 3 scholarly articles about that text. In the LMS, there are ProQuest resources. They will help you find scholarly articles, but they will also make sure that you know what a scholarly article is. So I would run through this practice quiz and just kind of, this is not graded, but it'll give you the opportunity to make sure that you know what a scholarly article is. It has to be an article published in a scholarly journal, which is a peer-reviewed journal, and it cannot be a review of a text, like a book or something. It needs to be a scholarly article that provides analysis, original analysis of some British lit text that we have covered. So keep that in mind as you are finding your 3 scholarly articles. Read your scholarly articles that all discuss your chosen text. Take notes, annotate your articles, or take notes on a piece of paper as you're reading. Get a general understanding of the main idea of each article. And then use the format outlined below, I'm going to talk about it in just a second, to create an annotated bibliography with the 3 scholarly articles. Your annotated bibliography only needs to provide summaries. Some annotated bibs have how you'll use these articles in your future paper or your own evaluation of the article, whether you thought the ideas were good or bad, something like that. Here I'm just looking for summaries. Do you understand what these articles are saying? That's really the most important thing that I want us to focus on. All right, if you go the traditional route, you're taking approach 1. The assignment length for this is, there is no required page length. Most students turn into maybe 3 pages of content. Your annotated bibliography should cite and summarize 3 scholarly articles. Obviously, this is fully a research assignment. You must do scholarly research, and I would encourage you to research through ProQuest, but there's also JSTOR that you have access to through the library. Again, check out the resources in the LMS, and there may be other places that you like to find your scholarly articles, and if you need help with that, just let me know. Here are some sample traditional annotated bibliographies from the Purdue OWL. An annotated bibliography looks like this. There is first a citation for the source, and then a summary of the source that you read. Some of these sample annotated bibliographies give information that's not just summary. There might be evaluations, plans for the site source or whatever. But again, you guys are just writing summaries, okay? When you're structuring your annotated bibliography, an annotated bibliography, again, has a citation for the source first. That should be in MLA format, and then a paragraph below it with the source annotation. And it follows that structure. So if you have 3 sources that you're analyzing, you've got a citation and a paragraph, a second citation and a second paragraph, and a third citation and a third paragraph. You do not need a works cited page at the end because you already have your citations above those associated paragraphs of summary. So all it is just 3 citations with 3 paragraphs, 1 below each citation. Okay, your summaries should be around 200 words. Include the main idea and major details of the scholarly article. When you're reading your scholarly articles, I would encourage you to print them out so that you can mark on them. You can write comments in the margins, highlight important things. This will kind of help you with those summaries because you can go through after you're finished and look at your notes, kind of get a gist of what is the main idea of this article. Annotating heavy texts is the only way to get your own understanding of the density of that content. Some questions that students have asked me in the past when they've completed this assignment. Do I need an introduction or a conclusion? Nope, not looking for that. Am I making any arguments? No, you are just summarizing. Can my paragraphs be more than 200 words? That's totally fine, but try to keep it limited. I'm just looking for a summary, which is main ideas, major details. You don't really need to cover every tiny little thing that the author has written about because I'm just looking for, again, a broad overview of the content of that, 20-page essay or scholarly article. So there's a lot to cover. I don't need to know it all. I just want the big ideas. Again, if you're still in the traditional approach 1, I want you to format your assignment document with basic MLA format headers. That's your name, your instructor's name, the class, the date, last name and page number in the top right corner on all pages. Title your assignment Annotated Bibliography. You can, as long as it's something appropriate, it's fine. You can say Annotated Bibliography for texts, for Goblin Market or scholarly articles on Goblin Market or something like that. That's fine. Write your citations in MLA format. Use the 8th edition. MLA might be in the 9th edition now when I'm recording this video, but I don't think there are major changes. So if MLA is in the 9th edition, use the 9th edition. 8th edition is pretty similar, I think. Use hanging indent format when you are formatting those individual citations, where the first line is all the way to the left and the second and subsequent lines are indented 1. This link will take you to a video on how to format that. All right. Any annotated bibliographies with missing sources will receive a 20-point deduction for each missing source, as that feels like, your unfinished assignment. I have a suggested timeline here. I would try and find all of your sources as quickly as possible and read and annotate them. And then you can go back and write your summaries. Maybe that doesn't work for you. An alternative suggested timeline would be find, read, and summarize 2 the first week that this is assigned, and then maybe the second week, find, read, and summarize that last final 1, put it all together. That's probably a good balance of how long this is going to take you. So do whatever works for you, but try to get a good timeline for yourself going so that you're not reading all at the last minute. Scholarly articles are very long, so keep that in mind. It will probably take a good 20 to 30 minutes to read and process what's in a scholarly article, if not more. There are some resources in the LMS that will help you. There's MLA format resources and ProQuest information, scholarly research resources. So please check those out if you need help. Of course, you can always email me as well. And I've got some video content on here as well. So if you are going with the traditional route, finding 3 scholarly articles, citing them, writing summaries, here's how I'm grading that assignment. I'm looking at your formatting. Does it adhere to the MLA format that I'm looking for? Are your citations accurate? Are your research sources scholarly articles? That's really the question next. All of them must be scholarly articles. Often I have students who will do this project and they will turn in articles from the website or reviews that are published in scholarly journals, but they're not actually articles. So please make sure that you are looking at scholarly articles. And if you're not sure, send me the links or, attach the PDFs of the articles that you're reading just to confirm. I'm happy to explain if they're not articles, why not? Why don't they qualify? Again, if you're going the traditional route, I'm grading your summaries. Are they clear, effective, and thorough? Do they meet the word count? Clear, effective, and thorough means, did you read the article and did you get the main ideas? So if I'm concerned that you didn't read it all or you're just kind of rushing your summary, I will find your text, I'll take a look at it, and I'll see if your summary really did encompass the main ideas of that author's argument on the text. And then I'm going to take a peek at grammar and just make sure that there are no errors or just very minimal errors. Okay, if you have questions, if you're going to take approach number 1, the traditional route, and you have questions, need help with anything, please send me an email. For those of you who are going the more creative route for approach number 2, this will probably take a little bit more time to explain because I have a lot to show you. But I'm really looking forward to hopefully at least a couple of you choosing this route. I think it's fun and exciting. I'm here to help if you have questions or you need help, because I know this isn't quite as straightforward as the traditional approach. So I would refer to this not so much as an annotated bibliography, but maybe more of a graphic bibliography. And instead of picking 3 sources, you're just going to pick 1, because what you're doing with that source and the output is a little bit more complicated. It's still a summary, but it's a visual summary, and it does include some quotes from these scholarly articles. So I'm going to grade it slightly differently. So what I want you to do is select 1 scholarly article and design a comic strip, graphic novel style. I mean, comic strip usually suggests humor. That's not really what I'm looking for here. I'm really just looking for a visual representation, graphic novel style, I guess I should say that. Your graphic bibliography should summarize the article through 3 things: narrative captions, quotes from the article using speech bubbles, and you should provide a visual of the text that the article is about using graphic design, or some visual of what's going on in the article, how it connects to the text. Okay. If you pick approach 2, this is sort of how I would go about it. Whenever I was thinking about this assignment, I did it myself. I'm going to show you an example of that, just so that I could understand maybe a student's process. So here's what I found worked the best when I went through this process myself. First, again, you need to select a text that we have read or will read this semester. Again, check out our course calendar. Any text on the calendar is fair game, even if we haven't read it yet, but it has to be on the calendar. Find 1 scholarly article about the text. Resources will be in the LMS. There is a ProQuest section in the LMS for you to kind of get access to ProQuest, and also make sure that you are looking at a scholarly article. There's a practice quiz in here that just makes sure you understand it's not just any article for this assignment. It has to be a scholarly article. It has to be one published in a peer-reviewed journal. It can't be a review from that journal. It needs to be fresh, original research by a scholar in the field. If you're not sure, let me know what your article is, and I will let you know if it is a scholarly article or if it's not, and why not. Why doesn't it qualify? Read your scholarly article, take notes, and get a general understanding of the main idea. This was imperative. Whenever I was working through this process, I had to read the article and highlight things, underline things, write my understanding of what the author was saying, because scholarly articles are dense and complicated. They're usually written by people who've spent years and years studying this material and have all these big ideas, so they can be difficult to read. So you have to take notes and get your own understanding for what is it that the author is saying. As you're reading, I would highlight the article for important quotes that help reflect its main idea. I would highlight the article for reference scenes from the text, just so you kind of have some places to pull from for the graphics part of your bibliography. Put all of this together when you're designing your bibliography. So I have some minimum requirements, like your bibliography will not be successful unless at a minimum you do the following. You need to have your graphic include at least 9 what I would call squares, rectangles, scenes, boxes, whatever. If we are looking at an example and a comic or a graphic novel has sections, and I'm trying to just pull my mouse over a section here. If you can notice, for example, in the middle you see these 2 individuals, a plus sign and gears, and the space around that's like a section. So what I'm looking for is at least 9 of these. In the example there are, I believe, you could say 11 or 12. So 3 on the very top row, 3 at the bottom of page 1, 3 at the top of page 2, and then 2 or 3, however you want to think of it, at the bottom of page 2. So when I say a graphic comic strip style text that includes at least 9 squares, rectangles, scenes, I didn't know what to call it, but what I'm talking about are those segmented pieces of a graphic narrative. Now, at least 8 of those squares, rectangles, scenes, boxes, whatever you want to call it, should include graphics. For example, I have one at the very end that's just a citation, so it doesn't include graphic. At least 6 of those should include narrative captions, or you should have 6 narrative captions somewhere on your graphic bibliography. And to exemplify that, I've got these blue boxes. These are my narrative captions. What I'm doing here is summarizing the scholarly article, and that's what I'm looking for, is what are your summaries of the scholarly article. So first, I comment on that, and then I summarize the next idea that the author had. I move on to summarize some of her quick, smaller ideas here and here. And then finally, I summarize her main overall claim at the end. And you can find all of that in the blue section of this example. So you need to have at least 6 summaries, or really what I'm saying is summarize 6 main points of that scholarly article. I want you to include at least 5 quotes from the author of the scholarly article. You should associate those with your summaries. So, if you have a summary, well, what quote helps to support that your summary is accurate? Quotes should present analysis on the text being analyzed within the article. I also find that when you're putting your graphic bibliography together, having a little avatar for your author every single time helps to, give that visual that, hey, these are not my ideas, these are the author's ideas of this scholarly article. You'll want to make sure you put them in quotation marks. As you can see here, for example, I've got this repeating avatar who I'm sort of just designating as the author of the scholarly article that I read, and I associate that at the top of the page. And then I have a speech bubble quoting her, the author. I put quotation marks around her quote. I even have an in-text citation. Just really want to make sure that whoever's viewing my graphic bibliography knows that the stuff in blue is my words, the author of this whole graphic bibliography, and I am quoting from someone else, again, the author of the article that I read. Okay, so I want you to have at least 5 quotes from the author of the scholarly article found in your graphic bibliography. And then somewhere I want you to have an MLA format citation for the scholarly article. You could put it at the very bottom, like in a footnote, or as I've done here, you can place your citation in maybe the final box, square, rectangle, scene, whatever you want to call it, just so that whoever's reading this knows, again, you didn't make up all these ideas, you're just kind of summarizing someone else's information. Okay, there's no real assignment length other than to say I want you to have 9 boxes, squares, rectangles, scenes, whatever you want to call it. Again, 8 of these should include graphics, 6 of these should have narrative captions. You can span a narrative caption across multiple, but that's just one narrative caption. So if we count in the example, I have 1 in the top row, 2, 3 by the time I get to the end of the first page, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 total narrative captions by the time I get all the way through those initial 11 squares, boxes, scenes, whatever you want to call it. Again, 5 quotes. I've got, on my example, I've got more than 5. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total quotes. I've got these just associated by color. All of the quotes from the author of the scholarly article have a yellow background. All of my summaries have a blue background. I think that color can help to connect ideas and show visual representation, so you might want to think about that if you go this route. Then again, those quotes are associated with an avatar for the author that I repeat over and over again, just for some consistency. This is, again, a research assignment. You are finding a scholarly article. This isn't your own argument. It is the argument of a scholarly article that you are summarizing. You're giving a graphic visual to, and you're quoting from it as well. This is the example that's linked on the assignment sheet. I read Conventionalism and the Utopianism in the Commodification of Rossetti's Goblin Market. I've covered this. Narrative captions, you can notice in the example, have a blue background. Quotes are found in speech bubbles with a yellow background, and each box, or almost every box, includes a graphic. I created this by using a somewhat lengthy process. The amount of time it took me to read, figure out, associate all of this content is about how long it would take someone doing the traditional assignment to read through free scholarly articles and write some simple summaries. So the 2 options are different, but you're getting the same, I guess, intensity depending on what you go with. So the first thing I had to do was read and annotate the scholarly article. I do have a full picture of my annotations here, just so you can see how I annotate, kind of go through and pull out the things that stand out to me, the things that I understand. I don't really annotate a lot of the intense examples that the author goes through. I kind of write notes to the side of my understanding of the author's ideas. I highlight or underline important quotes. Maybe I'm going to use those in my graphic later. If you're annotating for a paper, maybe these are the quotes you're going to use to support your ideas as well. And then I kind of just go through and write a main conclusion at the end, or I try to identify the author's thesis statement by the time I get to the end of their scholarly article. So first you have to do that. You can't even get anywhere near your graphic or your summary or any of that until you've read and annotated your scholarly article. The other thing that I had to do, I couldn't just read and annotate and then go straight into the graphic. I had to sort my ideas, so I would recommend doing this as well. So I've got a sample of the process that I took. The very first thing that I did is I tried to identify, okay, what are my narrative captions going to be? What are my at least 6 sentences of the author's main ideas in my own words? How am I going to kind of sort out the ideas that the author is saying? So the first thing I did was kind of create my own summary here. If I were taking the traditional route, this is probably what I would include in my paragraph underneath my citation. I would just have to do this 3 separate times with different articles. Then the next thing I did is for each one of those narrative captions, I identified at least one quote from the scholarly article that I felt was best associated with my summary. Like, what from the author's own words would prove that my summary is a good and true summary of the content. And so I've got, the same thing that I wrote for my summary, and now I'm highlighting, here are the quotes from the author that I think best support that I've understood her ideas effectively. So I went through and I did that. And again, I'm trying to color code. So in my example, my summaries are blue. On my process notes, those summaries are blue as well. My quotes in my example are yellow, and they are also yellow in my process notes. And then I went in and I took a look at, okay, what's my summary? What quote did I connect it to? And how might I visually represent this on my graphic? And I just kind of made a tiny note for myself of what I might want this to look like. And so I went through and did that. So when I was going to begin the graphic bibliography, I had something to pull from in an organized way, so I didn't just feel like all of these ideas were floating around in my head. The next thing that I did is I went to Canva. Canva is a design, a design website that you can use for free. They have upgrade pro purchase options, but I only ever use the free version. You can create an account on Canva and start making a design. I searched for comic strip template, and I kind of just looked around. What I eventually found was a template that looked like this. It is called the Blank 6-panel comic strip, and I clicked customize, and that just kind of gave me somewhere to start. I duplicated the page because, again, I knew I was going to need more than 6. I needed at least 9. I needed at least 9 of these boxes. So I duplicated the page, and then I worked from there. All I ever did when I was working on my graphic bibliography was adjust the size or the span of my narrative captions, insert the content I needed, move around the position of my speech bubbles and the text that's associated, and then added elements to the various boxes. Now, I've used Canva a lot, so I'm very familiar with how to manipulate the graphics here. There might be something that you are familiar with, and it might not be Canva. You can use any program that you like. This is a creative project, so I'm not necessarily going to teach you how to use Canva or any kind of creative platform. I assume that if you are going this route, you either already have some knowledge of a design platform like this, or maybe you want to hand draw your comic strip and scan it and turn it in that way. You know, there's a lot of different options. This is what works for me. If you've never used Canva, but you want to go this route, it's user friendly. You just have to have the patience to play around with it and, you know, figure it out for yourself and what's going to work. But I pretty much just live in adding text boxes and elements to my pages, moving the content where it needs to go, resizing the content, and then sometimes I will play around with, you know, changing the color of the content if that is available to me, because that's kind of fun sometimes to get, you know, a theme going. For example, I really tried to keep as much of my graphics with a green theme going on as much as possible. You know, I did that here and there, and that's okay, but I wanted to have some kind of unification. So this is how I would certainly, if I were making a recommendation, I would recommend that you use Canva. I will put a link in the assignment sheet so that you have a quick access to that. But it's Canva, C-A-N-V-A, and it's a wonderful website for design. As far as those of you taking approach 2, if you do want to go the graphic bibliography route, some questions. Do you need an introduction or a conclusion to your graphic? No, you certainly do not. Do you need to write your own arguments? No. This is, again, really just what is the author saying? How can I represent it through my own summaries, through the quotes of the author, and through visuals that I've included in my graphic? Is there a minimum total words for the assignment? Must include. I would just try and make your whole graphic have at least 300 words. I think that most of you will probably exceed that, but something to kind of keep in mind. Title your graphic, title of scholarly article by author of scholarly article, a graphic bibliography by your name. Okay, write your citation. Again, you have to have that one citation at the very end. Write that in MLA format. Some assignment penalties. So I was calculating all of the moving parts of this. There's about 20 parts with narrative captions, graphics, speech bubbles. If your graphic looks like it's not really got everything that I'm looking for, I'm going to start counting. Okay, does the student have 9 boxes? Does the student have 6 narrative captions? Does the student have 5 quotes? If I notice that there are things that are missing, I'm going to subtract 5 points for any missing part. So as long as you meet the minimum requirements, you won't have to deal with any assignment penalties, but something to keep in mind. Again, the LMS has MLA format resources and scholarly research resources for you if you need help getting started or citing. Now, regarding how I'm grading this, I do have to grade this differently than if you went the traditional route. So formatting is still worth 20 points. It should be an MLA format, it should be accurate. Your scholarly article must be a scholarly article. Again, I have students who sometimes will give me reviews of books or just an article from a website. It has to be a scholarly article. So there is a section here on appropriateness of research. Then I'm grading each segment of what I'm looking for separately. So first I'm going to take a look at your narrative captions or your summaries. I want to make sure that all of them are effective, clear, and thorough. Again, if it looks like you didn't really read and understand what's going on in your scholarly article, then I'm going to take a look at that and make sure everything is there. I also want to make sure they reflect, the summaries reflect the quotes that you use and the graphics that you associate them with. That's going to be important in having a unified graphic bibliography. I'm going to look at your graphics. Do they reflect the text being analyzed in the scholarly article, or do they connect to the ideas that the author is presenting in the scholarly article? Do they also reflect the content of your narrative captions and the quotes that might be associated with them? I'm going to grade the quotes that you've included. Are they quotes from the author of the scholarly article? Not from the text. You'll notice in the example, none of these quotes are quotes from Goblin Market. These are quotes from the author, Helen Pilanovsky, who wrote the scholarly article that I read. These are not quotes from Goblin Market. So again, your quotes should be from the scholarly article, from the author. Do the quotes reflect, again, a unification of the graphics, your narrative captions, i.e. your summaries, and quotes that you've provided. And then I'm going to look at grammar. I'm going to read through the text-based content on your graphic bibliography and just make sure that there are no or minimal grammar errors. No matter what, you have to turn this in the LMS. Okay, I think that covers everything regardless of the approach that you took. If you have any questions, please let me know.